Good morning, good morning. We're gonna have a little bit of a different video today. We're gonna talk about bag holders. What are bag holders? How to recognize bag holders? How do bag holders think? This is gonna tie in very nicely with my video about prospect theory. If you haven't seen my video on prospect theory, I think it was 2 weeks ago now that I did that one. So before you watch this one, that one will probably be helpful to watch that one beforehand. Just because I'm going to bring prospect theory up a decent amount. So bag holders. What is the basic definition of a bag holder? Someone that is unwilling to cut a loss. Someone that will be down a loss or will be in loss in the red for a very long time without selling. Just with the hope of turning back and actually turning it into a profit, or preferably, most often the case, break even. Now, I've collected a few of these plays here. I actually collected two, which I found very grandiose, that I wanted to cover in regards to bag holding, and that was Pixie and Craig. So I'm going to kind of annotate those to you. Or, yeah, I guess you can call it annotating. So, how would you identify a chart that has a lot of bag holders? Generally, every chart that has a very downtrending, downward trend. Ooh, nice, download completed, billions, great. Every stock that has a very gradual, or not even has to be gradual, but that has a very large amount of downtrending happening over the last while, will have bag holders. Now, of course, it really differs between how much bag holders a stock has versus how little it has. It really depends on the chart. I won't get too much into that because that would simply get very complicated. And I think as soon as I'm done with this video, that is something you can start building experience with by just watching the market, just watching charts and just observing charts. So to talk about Pixie, let me just make the daily chart, because this is all mostly happening on the daily chart. But just to give you a little clarification, this is what happened when there was bag holders. I mean, a little bit of a spike in the pre-market, and then it got a little bit of a spike out of the gate, and then it just crashed all day. So let's pick up the daily chart here. Now, what is it exactly that you need to look for? As I said in the beginning, bag holders are people that will hold a bag position for a very long time until they break even and potentially even have a profit on it, or just minimize their losses. So what I talked about in prospect theory, as I said, ties really well into it. This is risk seeking over losses. That's basically what it comes down to. I also talked a little bit about the bag hold mentality in that video. So bag holders, they don't want to cut their loss. They're like, it has to come back eventually. And maybe that's not you. Maybe it is you. If it's you, take a hint. Because that's not how it works. You're not going to become a millionaire holding bags like that. That's just not the way to go. But they don't want to sell the position. Like, it'll come back at one point. It'll come back at one point. And as I was alluding to, if it's you, you're in a bad position. If it's not you, you would be surprised how many people are bag holders. Like, if you will talk to a bag holder, like, why don't you just sell your position? It's like, no, but it'll come back. They'll agree. They will always have the mentality, it's like, dude, it's just a matter of time. It'll come back. I'm not going to take a loss. Now, that is just generally a very bad way to go. It's just a very bad way to go. You get your position or a big part of your account frozen for a long time because you're bag holding or massive loss. It's basically the mentality of it's not a loss unless you take it. It's that mentality. And that's generally a very bad mentality, as I talked about in the prospect theory video. So go watch that. Now, to talk about Pixie, just to cover it on Pixie. This is obviously a very downtrending chart. Massive down fade from here and massive down fade from here. This area right here, this day and this day, had massive volume. This day did 19 million volume. 19 million shares traded on the day. Now, how many people do you think traded this in the day? The exact number doesn't matter, but it's a lot, right? Like, there's a lot of people on that day that are going to be trying to trade and trying to make some money, but there's also a lot of people that are going to get caught in this, especially because it faded down really hard right after that. So there's a lot of people that maybe got in at the 550s, at the 5s, at the 6s, at the 4s even, that are like, it's not a loss unless you take it. I'll just wait for it to come back. Um, that's just a bad way to go because, I mean, look at this. Say, for example, you would have gotten in the 5s, you would have to be literally down 50% of your position before you would even come close to breaking even. I mean, this went to 415 at its peak. That is very reasonable to hello. It's very reasonable to assume that this is exactly why this stock got stuffed right as it got here. These two candles are relatively strong because they're trading here. If I do this, I can actually draw it out for you. They were trading in this range. There's not a lot of people that get in this range, in the range that I'm selecting, so that's the 360s to the 280s. There's not a lot of people that have gotten in this range. Can I actually draw a box? I can't draw a box. This is a box. I hope this is not some weird Fibonacci thing. So that is exactly the area that it's covering. So there's not a whole lot of people that would have bought in here. There's not a lot of people that are just trying to dip by this downtrend here. So generally, as soon as these spikes get decent volume, they can generally get some leg ups. But these charts, there's not a lot of volume tied to it, so there's not a lot of people buying here. Probably most of the people selling here. But then we come into this candle, just to draw another box here. This candle comes into a whole different bit of range right here. This comes into this consolidation area right here. There's a lot of people that will try to buy the consolidation, especially because this candle also had a decent amount of an interesting note there that you can also look at. You see how this candle traded 19 million shares? The second one after that traded 2.5. That's not that great. That's not that great. I'm not going to take a look at the intraday chart because that's just not insanely important in this case. But so on a day where it spiked, how much is this? 51%. The second day it only, on 19 million volume, the second day only did 2.5. So do you really think that there's 19 million shares that have gotten bought and have gotten sold in the same day? No. There's a whole lot of people from that 19 million pool that are still holding their bag. They're still there. They're still just holding on. Like, oh, let's see what happens. That the volume really tells the telling story there. Because I mean, you see almost no distribution after it. You see it obviously selling off, but on a very light volume, like this cumulative. I don't know how to pronounce it. Cumulative. No, maybe it's because I'm European. I don't know. 2.5, 500,000, 300,000, 300,000, 500,000. So if that comes out to 5 million over the entire period here, this from 320 from 312 to 320, that'd be more than I would guess. Cumulative. Now I kind of want to Google how to pronounce it. I will, because now it kind of bothers me. Cumulative. Cumulative. There you go. Got it. So there's Bagholders from this entire move here. Now, to tie that back to the original move that we had on Thursday, there's still Bagholders from this general area. There's still Bagholders from this ramp up that it had and this fade that it had. There's people that bought here, bought here, and these three candles that are down in their positions right now, and they're just hoping to get a piece of that break-even move. I mean, this from right here, I thought we were on a box. What happened to the box? All the people that are in this area that bought in this area, I think it gapped up a little bit more, but that doesn't matter. That bought in this area are underwater. They could have sold into this spike, they could have sold into this spike, but all of those are underwater. Now, that's not necessarily a lot, but it'd actually be more than you'd expect. The psychology behind it is, okay, this spike, I'm holding my bag from here. Okay, I'm going to sell into the next spike. It has to come back eventually. This spike, oh, that didn't even get close to my my entry point. So I'll just sell it on the next pop that it has. Fades down even more. It has a pop that is a relatively significant gap up. there's all those bag holders from this 19 million share day here that are still bag holding, that are going to want to sell into that spike. It's like, oh boy, please just let me get out, because they've seen that this spike didn't give them anything. They see more fading, then they see another spike, like, dude, I got to take my chance here. Like, it's not going to come back. That's just the way the dynamic of those bag holders changes, which is honestly relatively notable if you think about it. Now, another one I wanted to tie this to was Craig. Let me just delete these boxes because that's going to be weird. There you go, remove John. Craig. Here we go. Craig was also, well, hello. Craig is also obviously a very interesting play, and that crashed insanely hard on Friday. Now, there's obviously some more dynamics to it than just Friday. To just bag holders, was an S3, there was a lot of FOMO chases, stuff like that. To tie that into the intraday, it looks a lot like Pixie, right? Like, I mean, it opens, maximize, thank you. It opens and it gets stuffed right away. There's a lot of people that are chasing, but there's also those bag holders that are just instantly driving it down. So let's identify the longer term chart to see what that looked like. So you can see here that this 275 level was a really thick support on it for a really long time. It had this massive run up in, what was this, November? Wow, it's already November? That's so long ago already. I thought it was like January. Anyway, so they had this 275 as a support for a very long time, and it spiked from 150 to 236. 230, what was the high there? 238. 240 was the high. So they got this massive spike. Okay, but they're not really entering a lot of bag hold territory. It hasn't really had any follow-up spike ever since it cracked at 275. So everyone that bought into this 275 area is most likely underwater. Now, to tie that back, let's just draw another cube box. To draw that back to the to this, in theory, all the people that bought in this area, I won't include the spike because, yeah, I might even include the spike because there's probably bag holders from that area as well. So all the people that have bought in this area are underwater on this day. And especially interesting is the people above 275, because obviously there's not a whole lot of people that are bag holding from this little area here. There's probably not a lot of people that are still bag holding from this area because they have been break even already. But it's that 275 support level that it's supported on a very, very long time that a lot of people are going to be bag holding. I mean, it had some really sick volume spikes here. It had this day was 6 million. This day was 7 or almost 8 million. This day was 5 million. And all those spikes, they got instantly stuffed by bag holders from the move above. I mean, there's still massive range above it. I mean, this is 4, and it goes to the 9. So in theory, there's probably bag holders in this from the 9s, and it kind of ties back nicely to that Pixie example that I said. This day was 26 million volume. This day was 25 million. So, I forgot how to say it again. Cumulative, right? Google. Cumulative. There you go. Cumulative, that's 50 million shares being traded. Well, that has not been traded since then. Like, that has not all gotten distributed. Obviously, it's not 50 million shares traded on the day as buyers. There's also sellers involved, but those have not been distributed yet. Big part of that. So there's still a whole lot of bag holders from there. So you see that, and you identify, it's like, wow, there's a massive overhang here of bag holders. Everyone in here is bag holding. There has not been a big spike after that. Like, if this had another spike, say, beginning of February, to like the 10s, a very big part of this doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't matter anymore because all those bag holders have already had a chance to get out, and they probably have. That is also a thing that you need to study the volume for. Is like, if there was a spike to 10 on insanely large volume, that probably got rid of a lot of bag holders from the previous spike, but then that spike will also bring bag holders with it if it after that faded to 150. So in that case, it's very clear cut that this is going to get sold off right away. Because all those people that are buying in this range, which was literally, I think I can draw a trend line, right? Let's just draw it up until this day. There you go. 77 days. This is a cumulative total of 77 days. Everyone that bought here for these 77 days and has not sold a position, which is a lot of people, are underwater at this point. Especially these big volume spikes like this one for 6, this one for 8, and this one for 5. They're all underwater. Don't get freaked out by something like that. Don't get discouraged by that, because I'll tell you how you can identify something like that. Or, well, I've just told you how to identify, but I'm going to tell you how you can avoid getting stuck in one of those chases as far as bag holders go. And we're going to tie back to that in the daily chart. So I hope that bag hold, what I'm trying to explain there is kind of clear. If it's not, just send me a DM, I guess, or ask me a question. Now, to tie that back into the intraday chart, how can you identify when the bag holders are no longer an issue? Or how can you justify a good long? You might tell yourself, like, oh, but it's already sold off a lot in the pre-market. And yes, or it hasn't sold off in the pre-market. It's already went up a lot in the pre-market. What's up with that? How I generally look at it, the people that hold backs are not insanely experienced traders and relatively inexperienced traders. They tend to not have the best of brokers, and some brokers don't have the ability to sell in the pre-market. Or they might be expecting a bigger push, something like that. But just most volume happens intraday, obviously. Um, I won't get too much into that. But so how can you identify when the bag holder is no longer an issue? Say, for example, you see a spike like this, straight out of the open, and gets stuffed right away and just falls back down. But then you see it break that spike. You see it forming another another powerful move to the upside with big volume, preferably, of course. Now, that is not always a guarantee, especially in a case like Greg, because you don't know how high it's going to go before it's going to be met with more bag holders. Especially if you look at the daily chart here, you can see that this topped out multiple times, about 3 or 4 times, in the 4s. So that 4 might not necessarily be a bag hold level, but that is obviously a psychological resistance level. A lot of people see that it hasn't gotten through 3 or 4 times. So they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to get in right now, but my price target is 4 because it hasn't broken that for 3 times. So it needs to break 4 convincingly to get more people in. But that's like, we're talking about bag holds, not about breakouts. So if you see something like this, you see a nice stuff out of the gate, and you see it kind of ramping back up on good volume, and this candle had big volume as well. I mean, this candle had 800,000 volume. If it has like a lot of action in the beginning, and it has like 2 to 3 million volume in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then you see it still having strength, you can see it is still running up. That will be good incentive to start to think about a long position, because that would mean like, okay, a lot of bag holders have been taken care of, judging by the volume. And right now it's still very strong, so now I can justify putting in a long position, just because that 3 million volume has taken care of so many bag holders, and it's still it's still showing a lot of strength. So that means like, okay, there's still people that are willing to buy this, and it looks like a lot of the sellers from those previous spikes have gotten exhausted. So seeing this strength after all that massive volume is a good sign that it's going to have a leg up. But I mean, in this case, it's not really doing that. I mean, has this big volume spike, it tries to bounce back, dip bars and whatnot. People are like, oh, let the first candle on the intraday do its thing. But it never really got to show that strength again. I mean, it's just fading off, a little bit of a bounce off this 275 area. Curiously enough. Could be a decent dip buy, but not my style. Not after seeing one of these massive fades. But it is always curious to see how many dip buyers actually come in at round or at support levels like that. It's curious to just observe something like that. But it instantly just turned bad, and I think the intraday fade was absolutely horrendous. I mean, what is this? 45% fade. Damn. Thanks, bag holder. So the first thing that I always start with when I'm making a trade plan is always look at the daily chart. Are there bag holders? Is it a clean chart? Is there a breakout coming up? Something like that. What are other people going to be thinking? And I base my plan on basically on that. So I hope that was useful. I hope this video was useful. There's a lot of good information here. If you think this video was useless, you're probably going to want to watch it again, because you probably didn't get the punchline, I suppose you could say. So yeah. Thanks for watching.
And I hope you have an absolutely phenomenal weekend.